think there are problems with our current clean elections system. I don't believe that there's in today's society, people don't like clean elections because it costs money and we're in an economic downturn. If we were in an economic upturn and we had more money in the coffers than we currently have, I don't believe you would be hearing as much gripe about it. But I believe that it does serve a useful purpose to getting special interest money and lobbyist money out of our system. $40 million was spent last year from lobbyists and special interest groups. That $40 million, I believe, bought something. What it is, nobody will ever know. It's probably buying votes. I don't take special interest money. I don't take lobbyist money. I'm fully funded by small donations, and I think that that's the way most campaigns should be run. Are they run that way? No. But I think as state legislators, we should take active roles to police ourselves. I think that if you look to the people that are currently there, they're not going to want to change the system because they're living pretty cozy. But I think that we need new leadership, new innovation, and a creative approach to governing that will change not only the issues of healthcare, education, and the environment, but the way that our political system is funded. And I think it really goes to the core of our election system. The reason that there's only a quarter of the legislative races this year are contested. There's only 54 contested races in the state of Massachusetts. That's only a quarter of the elections this year. The reason for that is people don't have the ability to raise funds to fund a campaign. I think the only way that we can ever make change on a state level is to have elections. I would also like to point out that our current Senator Bruce Tarr has run unopposed the last 2 elections, and over a quarter of the people didn't vote for him in those elections. That shows that he does not have 100% of the populace out there, but it also shows that we need to step up.
I think your time on this is up. Thank you. Mr. Caggiano.
Yes, I would support the Clean Elections law as it was presently passed. I may have some ideas on how we can make the reimbursement mechanism a little more direct. You know, the horror stories of people getting these big checks and running big parties in their backyard, I mean, are a little overblown. But I think we can, you know, make the system a little more administratively sound. I also don't think that we should be having a yard sale approach when it comes to actually funding it, when we have to sell off cars in Saugus and land in Lakeville. I think that is unfair, and in fact, you know, takes state resources that might otherwise be put to something, you know, useful, like the Lakeville property, which was a beautiful piece of land and now will be subject to development when it otherwise wouldn't have been. I don't blame the Clean Elections supporters for that. I mean, it certainly wasn't their fault that we had to go to the courts to get that law enforced. I think there was a real failing on the part of the legislature to take a law that was passed by well over a majority of the populace and taking that and fully funding it. It was there were $23 million set aside for that purpose. And if the legislators wanted to, you know, get rid of it, then they should have taken the step which was provided for by law, which was repealing it. But nobody wanted to be in that position. I think that we need to provide candidates access to print media, to radio, and to, you know, for television on a statewide basis. And I think that's something that the state needs to take a role in, because money does corrupt these various situations. There are legislators who primarily make their money off of money from various interest groups and lobbyists. It's something that we really need to look at, and if you ever wanted to take a peek, all of that for the most part is online, where people get their money from, and it might be interesting reading to check on your elected officials to see where they're getting their money. It might be very enlightening to you. So I don't take PAC money, I don't take lobbyist money, I don't take anything other than from a living, breathing person, and that's the way it's going to be until I get out of politics. Thank you.
Thank you, and that concludes the question part of our evening, and now we would like to hear your closing remarks, starting with you, Mr. Caggiano.
First of all, I want to thank the League. I want to thank Mary Jane for organizing the event. I want to thank everybody for showing up and giving me a little bit of your time to listen to me talk about various issues. This is an important time because it really boils down to, you know, the crux of our legal political system. Your choice, who you're going to choose to be your next senator, your next governor, your next district attorney. It's really coming down to you're looking at us in this extended interview process and picking which one you want to hire. Which person, when you talk about their issues, when you talk about their qualifications, their demeanor, Who is the person that you want to have go sit in that room of 40 people in dark gray suits making decisions about your life? I think that I am the person to go to the Senate and to hit the ground running, not only in terms of the issues, but in terms of being able to deal with people. I've worked for 10 years negotiating. That's what I do as a lawyer, getting things done. And it's not just having a law degree. It's the experience of being in a room with people who don't necessarily like each other, but when the end of the day comes, have to make a decision about something. I've broken up fights at closings. I've made things work when they couldn't have worked. I've saved bankrupt companies from going under totally. I've helped bring jobs to Massachusetts through advocating with my clients that this was the place to be. So I think that I'm the person who, if you looked at them sitting in the seat in the Senate, you'd be happy to say, well, that's my senator. And I want you to take a look at me and to Andy and Bruce Tarr and look at our qualifications and who we are and what we've done, and from that point, make your decision. This shouldn't be a popularity contest. It shouldn't be about the number of signs you have on the street or the amount of time you have on the television. It should be about who's the best person for the job. And honestly, I think that's me, and I hope you'll vote for me on September 17th and then on November 5th. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Armato.
Thank you. I too want to thank the league and everybody here for coming and everybody at home that's watching. This election is about choice. It's about a choice between the status quo and of politics as usual. I believe this is a very important election, and that's why I decided to get involved. I've been active in my community for many, many years. If it's not being a youth soccer coach, to running my own small business, to being involved in the Wilmington Chamber of Commerce or my local Community Action Coalition, or the Mass Audubon Society, I too am very active in the Habitat for Humanity. But I don't sit at a table and find people land. I get out there and I build houses. I tear down walls and I hit nails. That's my approach to life. That's my approach to this election. Like I said, we've been door to door in every town in this district. I've talked to people in their living rooms and in their front porches or on the streets in front of shopping malls and supermarkets. That's how I intend to be a leader, to get out there and hear your voice, and to go to Beacon Hill and let that voice be heard. Not just my personal feelings, but your feelings. I think that this election is about approach. It's about who do you believe will be able to sit at a table with all the gray suits and get something accomplished. I believe that I'm that person. I think I've demonstrated that over the last 9 months I've been active in this campaign. And I believe it is about how many signs you have on the street. I believe it is about how much time you have with people. Because I believe that if you're not willing to get out there and you don't have an organization out there willing to put in the time and the effort to become elected, you're not going to have the ability to have people listen to you. And I think we all have had times in our lives when we've been able to resolve conflicts. I have a gigantic family. My mother's one of 9. It poses a significant problem on our family level. That's how you work out conflicts. You sit at a kitchen table and you talk about issues and you talk about what you care about and what they care about. I've been lucky enough to do that with my wife. I've been married 2 months. It's been a challenge, but it's also been something that I look forward to doing. Sitting at a table with 39 other members fighting for you. I ask you for your vote in our Democratic primary on September 7th, as well as our general election on November 5th. I believe I'm the best candidate to represent your interests.
Thank you very much. And the League thanks both of you for coming tonight and articulating many of your views. And I think it will be very helpful to voters on September 17th. But before we conclude, I have an announcement, which is on September 4th at the Ipswich Center for the Performing Arts, which is located on Route 133, there will be a candidates forum for Democratic candidates for state and local offices, and that will run from 7 to 9 in the evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Good job. Anybody want some cigarettes?
Great job. Thank you. I've never done this before. Oh, yeah.